Welcome to the Authors Podcast with Lisa Newton. Writing a book is a dream for many people, and in today's society, it has become easier and more important than ever. If you are an expert, speaker, coach, or an authority in your field, having a book is the new business card. It can increase your credibility, enhance your status, and make you the go-to person in your field, opening doors and bringing a flood of opportunities straight to you. You can increase your fees and start choosing the clients you really want to work with. The Authors Podcast show with Lisa Newton is designed to inspire, educate and inform you, both entrepreneur and individual, on how to write a book, as well as writer's tips and strategies on how to actually get that book written. On today's show, you learn more about how to write a book, including writing ideas, marketing, and how to succeed in getting a book written. Here we go with the Authors Podcast, and here is your host, Lisa Newton.
So hello and welcome to another episode of the Authors Podcast. Thanking you for joining me once again. On today's show, I'm talking to Christopher Moss, who is a store manager. He's been in retail for 28 years. He has 2 children who are 12 and 10 and is married to the love of his life for 15 years. He's very driven, very loyal and approachable, and is an individual that cares for others. Nothing is better for Chris to spend time with his family. Now, it was his horrific ordeal at the hands of an armed robber 3 years ago that was a life-defining moment for him, and it threw him into crippling anxiety. Struggling to get out of the house, he rebuilt his life, and it set him on the course of becoming an author. His first book, Hope Over Anxiety, has given many other sufferers hope. It is about his ordeal. He first started feeling anxious when he lost his brother to cancer when he was aged just 20 months. It is a raw and honest account of how to break free of anxiety. His mission in his life is to help others break free of anxiety, to give them the skills to cope with everything that anxiety throws at them. He teaches people to love their anxiety and to believe that they can dream of an amazing life. He takes great joy in helping others. He's a life coach, best-selling author and store manager. So on the line, I should have Christopher Moss.
Hello.
Good evening, Chris.
Good evening.
Are you Chris or Christopher?
Chris, please.
All right, excellent. It will be Chris going forward. That was an introduction then. My goodness. So an armed robbery.
Yeah.
3 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, 3 years. Just before Christmas, I was working on my own. I opened the store as I normally would do. It's quite pitch black around there, and it was a great opportunity for somebody to come in. And that's exactly what happened. Threatened me with a hammer, told me to open the safe, which I did. It's about 45 minutes ordeal, and he eventually escaped. My life was worth £3,500, which, is not much really. One of the worst experiences of my entire life. He got quite irate during it as well. Thankfully, he didn't hurt me other than roughing me up a little bit. But several times he did lift his hammer up to try and hit me over the head when the safe wouldn't open, and he was getting quite sort of heated. So it was quite a scary experience, but it's something that hit me really hard. But also, it was something that's, I have to think, is my life-defining moment, because after that, I managed to rebuild my life. How many people get the opportunity to look at their life and see that it's not good enough and need to make changes? Not many people face death like I did and make a decision that what I'd done up to that point wasn't good enough, and I managed to rebuild myself piece by piece.
Right. In terms of the whole ordeal, it can be quite shocking. How long did it take for you to sink in? Do you know, because sometimes when bad things happen to you, you can feel like it was a dream.
Well, the second he come through the door, and obviously he had balaclava and stuff on him, I swore quite heavily, and it sank in straight away. But one of the things I've learned, and it's the same thing that happened when I lost my brother, was I can detach myself. And I just, my focus was, I need to make sure that the robber is got exactly what he wants. I'm no hero. I want to make sure that my wife has a husband still, and my kids still have a father. So that was really much my focus, and that's what I had to do.
Yeah. You'd been in retail, so altogether 28 years. So at that point, you'd been in retail for around about 25 years.
Yeah.
And had anything even vaguely resembling that ever happened to you previously?
I've had a few experiences, but not on the level of that. I have had experiences where I've been beaten up at work.
Oh.
Yeah, I've had experiences where I've had people throwing baby oil at me.
Oh, dear.
Which is quite a bizarre thing to say. But yeah, aside from that, that was the worst thing by far.
So you was pretty shaken up after that experience. How did you deal with it? Did you go back to work straight away, or did it creep up on you, the whole anxiety, or was it just like immediately after that point, it was just like, oh my gosh?
Yeah. Well, I've had anxiety for sort of 30 years, but that just took it to another level. The police sent me home because I wanted to set the store back up again, and just thought, I've just had this armed robbery, but I was just focused on getting the store set up, getting everything sorted, getting the police on, and then I open the store and then moving forward again. But the police said, look, you started to show signs of shock. You need to go home, which I did do. A couple of days I was okay, and then I just hit rock bottom and continued to get that way, if I'm honest. It took me 2 months to recover. It got to the point where I needed to get back to work, and I felt that I needed to find another job because there's no way that I could work in that environment anymore. And that was really my focus. So I managed to find another company, and I managed to move myself forward. I wasn't well in any way, shape or form, but I managed to fake it and start rebuilding my life. It was at work where I started to improve myself.
So that time when you was at home during that period then for those 2 months, what was sort of going through your mind?
There would be times where I would actually live for being and feeling numb, where I didn't feel anything at all. There were small pockets during the day where I couldn't feel anything, which I felt was great. There was times where I felt just rage coming over me, so anger and shame for what had happened. Shame that, I just kind of brought it on myself, which is a silly thing to feel, but a lot of victims do. I felt sorry for myself. I was sort of wallowing in my own self-pity. I struggled to get out of the house. Putting my feet outside the door, I would sort of physically shake, and I'd really worry. And at night, I would have dreams of him coming back. It's written in my book. Outside a house at the back, there's a sort of like a door which you can see through, glass door. I sort of had sort of dreams of him standing at the door with a hammer in his hands, waiting for me to open the door so he could come in. So I had a lot of dreams like that during the 2 months that I did it, and I really, really struggled. I couldn't even look in the mirror. I felt that bad. I was sort of shame and anger at myself in the situation. I struggled to sleep. And say I had to go to the doctors. The only time I could leave the house, really, I had to force myself, was to take my kids to school. But I kind of faked it to my family as well. I didn't want them to see how much I was suffering. I sort of distanced myself from my wife, and I distanced myself from my mum and dad, and sort of like tried to fix myself. But I thought I struggled. I said I went to see the doctors several times during that time. They recommended me go on sort of anxiety pills. The recommendation was that it would take 6 weeks for it to kick in and make me feel better.
Wow.
In which case I'd get worse. Those 6 weeks I needed to get another job, and I needed to get out, and I felt really bad as it was. How on earth was I then going to get a job feeling even worse than what I do now? I was only looking short time, if I'm honest. So I refused, and I just started, once I get back to work, I started focusing on what can I do to improve myself, because I didn't want to feel this way anymore. And I basically faked it. For the first sort of like 3 months I was at work, I faked how I felt.
So was this in the same workplace, or did you get a new job?
No, I got a new job. I had 2 interviews in the same day, from one side of the country to the other. And I got a job, and I started there, quite a big opportunity. And it went from there. I sort of tried to sort of run away, which is not an easy thing to do, but I tried to do that and just started rebuilding myself. I started listening to sort of superhero music, sort of really inspiring music to get me going. I started listening to confidence YouTube clips, inspirational things.
Yeah.
And that sort of got me on the course. I started reading books because I wanted to change who I was. And I felt that the only way I could do that was to be a better person. And so I started reading self-help books and inspirational books. And that's what led me on to start writing my own book and moving forward. My wife suggested I try meditation. I laughed at her to start off with. But I said, this ain't going to work. But I actually gave it a go, and it was a massive, massive difference. It's one of the biggest reasons why I'm now a life coach, and I'm writing books and I'm helping other people. It's because of meditation.
Yes. Okay. And the new job, was that in retail as well?
It was, yeah, massive stores. I don't know whether you know the company of B&M, and they have loads and loads of stores over the last few years. And it was one really close to where I lived, a huge store, one of the biggest stores in the company. So it was a great opportunity as a deputy manager to go in there and do something different. You know, the autonomy that you have there, you could inspire people as well. And that was a really great opportunity for me to take.
Okay. Do you have to open up and close that store as well?
That's the next point. Yes, I did, but it was a little bit different because there was far more people there.
Yeah.
I had to face my fear very, very early on. There was a few times where overnight, because of how basically the alarms kept going off, and because there was a faulty wire with it. So we had to go into the store quite a few times because it said that there was an intruder. So the first 2 weeks I had to face my fears quite quickly, which obviously it wasn't an intruder. But I had to face my fears very, very quickly with that, which I think was a good thing, if I'm honest.
So the alarm would go off and you would have to go in?
Yeah, me and usually the replay manager would go in because we're the closest people.
Okay.
But it happened quite often, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We had to go in and check the store, walk around the perimeter, make sure there was nobody there. And it's quite pitch black around there as well. So it's quite a scary experience in itself. But I just sort of sucked it up and done it.
Okay. At what point then did you feel like, I've got to share this experience, I need to write this down?
I don't think there's one particular time that I would say I need to share this experience, but one thing that I was very prepared for, once I'd sort of thought I need to write a book about this, I had to give everything. It has to be authentic, it has to be raw, it has to be everything. I wrote everything I could, everything that came out from my heart and how I felt during the time. And I actually feel that was really important for me to get it onto paper, exactly how I felt. And the feedback I've had from people from this has been very, very, very positive, and it's helped others. And my pain and my suffering has been helped others people, and that's all I can ask for. And it's kind of a bit of a sort of difficult word to you to say, but it's been a great feeling for me to see that I've made a difference to other people.
Absolutely. You were listening to the Authors Podcast with me, your host, Lisa Newton. You can email me, lisa@lisanewton.co.uk. And remember, we have the Inner Circle, which is for writers just like you, and you can join us at writerbook.net. If you are just tuning in, I am talking to Chris Moss, and he is the author of Hope Over Anxiety. And it was a book inspired by an armed robbery attempt that he suffered and the journey he's been on to get back to, if you can say normal, if that's a word you might say. How do you feel about that, Chris? Do you feel like you are who you were before, or do you think you'll never quite ever be that same Chris as per before the attack?
It's a good question. Good question. I actually think that I'm better than I was before.
Nice.
I think that the armed robbery was a gift that it gave me an opportunity to look at myself and go, I need to make some changes. And I felt that I was a victim all the time, and I felt that everybody owed me, and I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I felt that having that experience humbled me. I feel I'm a better person since then. I don't want to be that person anymore, and that is a constant reminder of who I was. I felt that I was a victim. I felt I had a chip on my shoulder. I wanted to do better, not just for myself, but for my children, and also reading books and actually finding out, because basically from this I've started to find out who I am as a person, what my anxiety triggers are, who I am, regards to what type of person I am. For example, I've been so there's a podcast called Highly Sensitive People, and that sort of realised that that's the type of person I am, and what sort of things I do and don't like, and that's it was like a spiritual awakening, really. I felt the first sort of 41 years of my life I've been sleepwalking.
Wow.
And to have this has been quite a big opportunity to push myself forward and to see that life isn't, just down on the floor. looking at the stars and realizing that life is what you make it, and you can head for them. You head for your dreams. The bigger the better, and go for it. Little old me is pushing myself beyond what I ever expected, and that's all because of the armed robbery. So I can't be more than thankful for what happened. Admittedly, first year and 2 years was extremely difficult, but now I feel that it's made me a much stronger, better person. And the last years has been, 2017 was an amazing year. Amount that I've learned, the amount of people that I've met, amazing people I've met, and the fact that again this year is going to be promises to be an even better year for what I've physically been able to do. This is somebody that is quite shy, doesn't really talk too much, just like to get on with things. Find it very difficult to talk to people other than one-to-one, and I'm managing to, in the next few months, I'll be going to an anxiety depression support group, and I'll be the guest speaker.
Oh.
I'm doing podcasts with people.
Mm.
I feel that my life has dramatically changed, but it needed me to look at who I was, to find out who I was, and to find out who my people are, if that's the right word. And I feel that I've done that now.
Fair enough. One of the things that did strike me was where you said that you'd suffered from anxiety for the past 30 years.
Yeah. When my brother died, when he was 20 months old, I was 10 years old. He had cancer of the eye. They had it removed when he was about 15 months old, and he seemed like he was okay. However, there was secondary cancer, which they didn't realise he'd had, and that started to affect him, and he got progressively worse, so much so that he couldn't even sit up in the ambulance when he went to the ambulance. It was chicken pox, and I brought it into the house.
Yeah.
Looking on it now, that actually probably helped him, because going forward it would have been even worse for him. But because his body was the cancer, he couldn't fight the chicken pox, so he actually passed away on the 12th of March 1985 with cancer. But as a 10-year-old, I blame myself, because if I didn't have chicken pox, he wouldn't have died.
Yes.
So I carried that around with me for a good sort of 30 odd years. Not that feeling to start off with, that was that feeling, but going forward, into my adult things, I felt that I deserved everything I got, because I've been so bad when I was younger.
Right. Now, it's interesting, Chris, what you're saying there, how you felt as a young child at 10 years old, having brought chicken pox into the house, as you say, and that, because the baby caught it, that somehow you was responsible for his death. I don't know if you are into the law of attraction, if you've read any of those kind of books.
I haven't, no.
Because one of the things they say is our feelings and how we feel about ourselves is what attracts certain experiences into our reality, because we're vibrating at a certain frequency. Not to say, you bring things on yourself, but in a way, that's kind of the ethos sort of behind the whole law of attraction, where they say that what you manifest in your reality is a result of your frequency level. Just as I'm talking to you, this is just sort of an idea that's running through my mind there. And if you tend to feel like, oh, I'm always unlucky, then it's like unlucky things happen to you, that whole kind of thing. But just sharing a thought with you there. There you go. So hope over anxiety. So you started off writing the book then to help our listeners. First of all, the first step you took, you wrote down all your feelings, how you felt about the event, or was it more like a diary entry, or how did that sort of first writing begin? And then how did you then start to turn the contents of that into the book? Because it's not it's not like a story. It's not like that. Although you share your experience within the book, it is almost like, I'd say, a self-help book, would you say?
It is. Yeah, it is. It's what I did before, obviously I wanted to start writing a book, so I needed to make sure that I planned everything first. So I read several books on, how to write a book, and then I started writing from there. I basically mind mapped it all out. So each chapter I wanted to write out exactly what I needed to put in there, and then just put points from it. And then sometimes where, for example, the mindfulness chapter, I spent a bit more time reading through it. But once I'd sort of mapped it out into little small chunks of each chapter, I would then sort of let it percolate in my mind. So I'll be in the shower, and then I'll be right, I need to put that in there. So then I'd use Evernote, and I'll just write little notes on my book.
Okay.
And then once that had happened, I currently use Scrivener. So it's sort of like an app for a word sort of processing app that's really good for authors.
Okay.
And then I started writing things down and doing it like that and setting things out. But one thing I sort of kind of realised as well, that with the book, was more to it than just chapters. There's sometimes where near the end of when I'd finished the book, I thought I need to add a bit more feelings and stuff in here as well. And I got a bit creative and I started putting a few poems in there and a few sort of inspirational sort of messages in each part, so as you're flicking through it. So I added those two types of bits as well. I had an illustrator, which I'm very fortunate to have a wife that is a teacher.
Okay.
So she did a few illustrations for me as well, which
Excellent.
I've popped into the book. But I'd got an idea of where I wanted to go. I'd written it out, and then sort of like near the end, I come up with a few different ideas to add, which was much to my editor's distraction because she thought she'd almost finished. And I'll throw a bit more at her. Yeah, that's how I've done it. I've done it a little bit more structured for my next book, but that was how I sort of like played it out.
Okay. Is it a sequel? The next book that you're working on at the moment, is it a sequel to this book?
Yeah, it's basically the one. It's sort of like 6 months later type thing. But the book is about crippling anxiety. The first one. The next one won't be about that. It'll be the next level of sort of like, loving your anxiety and using it to help other people. And it'll be a bit more about coaching them and sort of guiding them. So the plan is that if someone reads the first book and they're in crippling anxiety, it'll take them to the next book, and then the plan for that would be a third book where they're sort of like in a really good place and looking to take on the world.
Oh, as you do. Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. Hope over anxiety. Where can people interested in this buy it?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's on Amazon at the moment. If you can, Kindle Unlimited, it's part of that as well. So if you're interested in sort of flicking through it and reading a few pages, more than welcome to do that.
Right.
The book is sort of split up so that you can pick and choose what you want. So you can just flick through whatever you want. But that's how we've done it. So on Amazon.
Okay. So the full title of the book is Hope Over Anxiety, How to Smash Crippling Anxiety and Live the Life You Love. And the author is Chris Moss. So, Chris, let me talk to you then about the coaching. When did that come into it? Because I can imagine that after going through what you've been through, you'd meet other people and you're sharing stories, and some people might still be stuck in their story, if you like. And then how did you get into helping people sort of deal and overcome and get to grips with their anxiety?
One of the things I started doing, and I started being quite open and honest, I'm writing a book. I've started sharing my experiences on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I've had responses from people from that. But I've also made myself quite known to everybody that I know, well, I work with, etc., that I suffer anxiety and this is what I suffer with. And that's been, I expected to start off with sort of like a cringe, sort of like, oh my God, people are gonna judge me on this. But I'm very surprised at the response from people who said, do you know what, I've got anxiety too, and this is what I suffer with. There's a part in my book as well where I've got sort of like 9-10 people that have suffered from anxiety that I know, friends, and people that sort of like have put themselves forward to help. I've sort of like gone through that as well. So I've sort of talked to people and tried to be quite open and honest. But it's been amazing, the responses from people. I say, because I've been so open and honest on Facebook and LinkedIn, I regularly get messages from people that I don't know face to face, that I know, and I've helped them. Even just a few words of encouragement, and that's all they need sometimes. But I've been through it. I've been through hell, and I managed to get out the other side. And this is what I've done to do it. And people are quite, what's the word? They want to know how I've done it because they want to break free themselves.
That's quite a brave and noble thing, really, to be so open on social media. Have you had any sort of trolls or anyone at all?
I haven't yet, no, which has been great. I've got over 40 reviews for my book, 31 in America, and they range from 4 stars to 5 stars, and I think it's averages about 4.75. Wow. My average rating for my book. I haven't had anything, and some of them, I'll be honest with you, have brought me to tears. The messages they put on there, you've given me more hope. Each day is better now that I've read this book. You can't sort of like, pay for stuff like that, and that's made me even more determined and given me more strength for going forward. And again, I'm a life coach now as well. I've got 2 clients that I'm going to be helping, and they're really keen to work with me. So that's another exciting thing that's happened over the last year.
If anyone out there is thinking, you know what, I know someone that could help, or that could help me, how would anyone get in touch with you to, inquire about your life coaching services? And I'm assuming it can be global. Maybe you could do it over Skype. How does it work?
Yeah, well, I've got somebody in Holland. So at the moment, I'm doing it over a messenger. But I say more than happy to Skype me. But the first thing to start off with would be my email, which would be mosschristopher799@gmail.com.
Right.
So they're more than welcome to message me, and we can start talking.
First point of contact, anyone wants to get in touch with Chris regarding the coaching, it's Moss Christopher, and Christopher is spelled CHRISTOPHER 799@gmail.com. Moss Christopher 799@gmail.com. Okay, and then they can email you and initiate the conversation from there. And you can be anywhere around the world, basically. That's it.
Yeah, anywhere at all. No, doesn't matter.
So that's an interesting thing then. So sharing on social media, and obviously if it's your friends, they're not going to say anything bad on your page. It's when you get to total strangers, trolls, I suppose, that might, leave some disparaging comment on your feedback. But sharing your story is one way to also alert people, let them know about what you're going through, and also that you are writing the book as well. And I've got to ask, sort of just to keep coming to my mind, in terms of the person who actually carried out the attack, were they ever found?
They were. It's still ongoing. Basically, there was 2 people involved, and they hit 8 stores during that time, and they've only been done for 2 of them. And because the CCTV wasn't as good as what it should have been, they've struggled to be able to pinpoint who it was. So it's still an ongoing case.
Okay. Wow. So it's not really over yet then, really, in a way?
No, it's not. No. There's a couple of times where they've needed me as a witness when originally they said they didn't need me. And I've got as far as sort of like getting in the car to drive off and then them ring and say, half an hour before I was supposed to be there, I'm not needed. But as I say, for me, I kind of got over that part, and I'm very, very thankful that I had it happen to me. Sounds a strange thing to say, but I am, because it made me the man I am.
Yeah. Fair enough. You were listening to the Authors Podcast with Lisa Newton. Please do subscribe to, like and share this channel. So if you're just tuning in, I am talking to Chris Moss. He is the author of Hope Over Anxiety, which is all about how to sort of rebuild yourself if you're someone who suffers from anxiety for whatever reason. And it could be a life experience. Oftentimes, I think that is what triggers it. What would you say, Chris?
Yeah. More often than not, there's quite a few reasons why you can be in anxiety. Parents could have anxiety as well, and that could be something that triggers it. It could be accumulation of events, financial problems and stuff could do it as well. And sometimes it could be just small things, the final straw that breaks the camel's back.
Interesting what you were saying about, you've got a number of friends that are suffering in this way, and it just reminds me of when I see, when they're doing campaigns, awareness campaigns like Depression Week or Depression Day and things like that, mental health awareness and stuff like that. I do wonder if, they talk about how people suffer, particularly with depression, in silence. We've got similar numbers suffering with anxiety in silence, again, in the same kind of way. What would you say?
I would agree with that. Read some stats recently that 1 in 10 people suffer anxiety during their lifetime. I do feel that there's a lot more people that suffer anxiety that we're not aware of, and also feel that there's a lot of people that suffer anxiety that they don't actually know they're suffering from anxiety, which I think is a big thing. One of the things that I noted from the experiences when I reached out to people was that only one male person said that they had anxiety and they needed help. Everybody else was female. And I feel that's more indicative of what us males are, especially my sort of age group, my generation, than what it is about, the facts. I think it's twice the amount of women suffer anxiety than men do. But I just don't think men are honest and say that have anxiety. I think that's part of the reason as well. You're
in your 40s.
I am indeed, yeah.
And why do you think that is? If someone's sitting there thinking, I wonder, not to be a hypochondriac, but, I wonder if I'm suffering from anxiety. What are some of the symptoms? So one of the things you mentioned was like, going outside and you felt like a panic.
Yeah, there's some strange things. So I've talked to my team about this, and that they sort of, oh, really? Yeah. Dizziness, headaches, exhaustion, palpitations, jelly legs. There's quite a few things. And as I say, panic attacks as well. A lot of people think that a panic attack is sort of like you rocking in a corner. That isn't the case. I mean, for me, my anxiety attacks, I physically shake. I stutter. I really, I basically want to get out of there quick as possibly can. I don't want to hang around. So it is individual to other people as well. I think there's 10 I've put in my book that the big ones that people have, and the panic attacks as well. People actually feel like they're dying. I don't think people actually realise how bad these are. You feel like your heart's busting out your rib cage when you have them. It's quite a scary experience, especially when it's one of your first times you've had it. But once you get over it as well, it's a humiliation because you feel that you've made a big scene in front of everybody. I don't wish that on anybody, if I'm honest. But I also feel that people with anxiety are absolutely amazing because they have to deal with it on a daily basis, and the fact that they still get up and they still fight it, that should be something to be applauded. They should be really proud of themselves because there are so many people out there that have it.
What would you say to someone sitting out there, maybe they've been through some sort of traumatic experience and they don't know where to turn to? Because I thought that was quite interesting as well, where you said that, if you go to your doctor, certain tablets that they might prescribe you might take 6 weeks to kick in. Like, why does it take so long?
Yeah, I know. Say one thing I've not really gone into is that sort of things, but they do say that you basically will feel a lot worse before you get better.
And then is it likely to then maybe cause another problem where you might get addicted to the tablets and it's difficult to come off them? When you stop taking them, does the anxiety then return? How does it work?
I'm only going to do this from experience of people that I've spoken to that have been on sort of tablets. But basically, over a short period of time, it comes back tenfold. So whatever you had and felt before, it's worse afterwards. Now, obviously, that's what I've experienced from other people that have been talking to me, how they feel. Obviously, I'm not no doctor, but for that's what happens to them. And whatever issues that they had in the past before that, and while they went on it, they're still there to be dealt with. Having the tablets that do help you, but it's a short-term fix and just to get you better.
Yeah, there are other strategies that can be more long-term. For example, like meditation, like you mentioned, and the other things in your book. Yeah. Okay, so excellent. So how have friends and family reacted to, have they actually read your book? Because I always think that's it. Yes. And did you ever feel anxious, like, oh, what will they think? Or is that just, not even a thought that entered your mind?
Well, I did this for me, but I did make sure that my parents and my immediate family as well got a copy of the book before it launched. And I'm also really, really proud because my editor is my cousin, and she's the other side of the world in Australia.
Oh, wow.
And, and with this book, it's actually brought us together closer, which I think's been superb. But I've been nothing but positive. My wife's been more than helpful. I mean, bless her. She's a teacher, so she's spent quite a bit of time actually going through it and editing it for me as well. So that's been great. And so my mum and dad have been sort of like really good, and to get a message from my dad and my mum and say that we're really proud of you is something else to sort of like keep you motivated and keep you going. I've not had any issues with people not supporting me on it, if I'm honest. They said you go for it. And from people that I've not met, and I've got to know people more by the fact that I've said, do you know what, I've got anxiety, I'm getting a book out, and they've sort of been quite open and honest, and I've found a lot more friends through this.
Yes, I can see how that can work. People out there, if you're thinking of writing a book, an idea, make sure that friends and family, if they've got skills, you rope them into the process.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the software you mentioned, is it Scrivener?
Or Scrivener. It's called Scrivener.
With a V, Scrivener. Yeah.
With it, there's SCRIVENER.
Okay. And also you began with Evernote, you mentioned as well.
Yeah, Evernote, it's something I always have, and I use it for my book too as well. So.
Okay. And in terms of like your writing routine, do you write every day? Do you write in chunks? Do you write when you feel inspired or when an idea comes to you? How do you manage that around your work as well? Because you still are in work.
Yeah. I used to get quite frustrated with myself because I wanted to write half an hour every day. So I'd get up and I'd write. But physically, that's just not possible with what amount of work I have to do during the day. So all I challenge myself with is making sure that I do 1% every day. And that could be that in the car and I might listen to a podcast about books and what I need to do to market it. It could be a phone call like today. It could be loads of different things. So I make sure that I do at least 3 times a week, and I've split it up now. Yeah, 15 minutes a day. That's what I'll try and do. But because I use Evernote, and most, to be fair, it's probably every day that I come up with an idea, I use that as well. But it's just focusing on 1% every day, because realistically, I do 50, 60 hours a week at work. I've got 2 kids that need my time, and I want to give my time to them. Physically, it's not going to be possible to sit and write for half an hour every day, every day of the week. I just can't do it. I did used to give myself a hard time over it, but realistically, that it's just not possible. It's not fair on my family either.
You made some good points there, but you do fit it in around your lifestyle, around your circumstances, and the key thing is that you're making time for it.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I enjoyed it.
What would you say is the best thing about being an author?
The best thing, community. I've met some absolutely amazing people, and they'll share their experiences. They're more than willing to help you, and they'll go above and beyond to help you. That's the best thing for me. And to share with people how you're getting on. They're quite open and honest about where their failures are and what they've done wrong. But the community. But I get a real buzz out of writing, and I'll get a real buzz out of making a difference to other people. And there's so many other people out there that write that do want the same thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You were listening to the Authors Podcast with me, your host, Lisa Newton. You can email me, lisa@lisanewton.co.uk. And remember, we have the Inner Circle, which is for writers just like you. And you can join us at writerbook.net. So, if you're tuning in, I am speaking to Chris Moss. He's the author of Hope Over Anxiety, How to Smash Crippling Anxiety and Live the Life You Will Love. The book is available on Amazon. You can email Chris, and his email address is mosschristopher799@gmail.com. And he can also be found on Facebook, and who to look for, CP Moss Author, all one word. And you
CP Moss.
Yeah,
should be able to find me.
You should be able to find Chris there on Facebook. So, Chris, any final words for the writers out there?
Yeah, for me, we deal in dreams, writers, and it's not just dreams for the people that are reading your book. It's the dream for you. Writing a book, publishing a book is one of the most difficult things you can ever do. However, it's one of the most amazing things you can do as well, because it opens doors in your mind to realise that you can do whatever you want to do in your life. People get so sort of tunnel visioned on what they can and can't do, but writing a book just makes you actually realise that I'm making a difference to other people, and how many more books can I write? I just think an amazing experience that I'd highly recommend many people do. Only 1% of 81% of people write books. 1%. So whoever writes one and publishes a book is part of the 1%. You need to think about that when you're publishing it and when you're pushing yourself towards it.
Yeah. What do you think stops people?
Sorry, say again?
What do you think stops people? There's so many people out there that want to do it. What do you think stops them?
There's 2 reasons for me. Firstly, I'm not good enough. It's going to be a lot of rubbish. And every single person that writes a book feels the same. It's a load of rubbish. My dog could write better, is what you feel. But there's another thing for me, and what I found I had to really smash through the last sort of month or 2 before I published. What happens if I'm successful? My life's going to be a lot different now because of it. What will happen? And that's the thing that scared me rigid.
The fear of success.
Fear of success, not fear of failure, fear of success. And that, again, so many people find it difficult, but you've just got to make sure that when you hit procrastination, there's a reason why it's stopping you. And there's always, for me, there's something there that will promote me for doing it. And I need to fix that problem before I can go forward.
And in terms of your life coaching business, what kind of clients do you work with? Is it people who are anxious, or is it also people who, like you say, suffering with procrastination and not doing what they need to do and working on why that might be and getting them through that?
Yeah, for me at the moment, it's that people that suffer from anxiety, but I'm more than happy to help anybody, writers, help them in any way, shape or form that they need help, whether it's procrastination or whether they want advice on marketing or whether they want advice on what they need to do next. I've spent the last sort of 18 months learning about book marketing. I've been on so many courses. I've made sure that I've learned from the best in the business in terms of writing books and marketing. Mark Dawson, Joanna Penn, Nick Stevenson, and they give great advice and great feedback, and a lot of the stuff that they send out was for free. So I highly recommend that anybody that's listening to this, that's exactly what they do, and have a look at those people because they give so much out. They've got podcasts and stuff as well. If you want to make this work, then you've got to make sure that you've got everything covered, and that's really helped me, and I'm more than happy to give my experience of the last 18 months and all the experience I've had from a lot of other writers and authors.
So for the book marketing, repeat those names for us again.
Yeah, and for book marketing, for how to write a book, whatever you're doing, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, you're looking at Nick Stevenson, Joanna Penn, Nick Stevenson, yeah, and Mark Dawson. They're all English authors.
And Mark Dawson.
They've made very successful businesses. There's several others that you can look at as well. Chandler Bolt has got about 6 or 7 books that he's written, quite a few of them about how to publish a book. He's an American, and I say it's from my course, from the course I've learned a lot from him.
And his name again?
Chandler Bolt.
Chandler Bolt.
Chandler Bolt. Chandler.
Chandler Bolt. Okay.
Chandler Bolt.
Excellent. So listeners out there, there are plenty of resources out there, people giving information away, as well as courses that you can attend. And this is something completely doable, completely within your grasp. Whatever the blocks are, you just have to smash through them and get it done. Find the time.
Yep. Find the time. If you want to do it, you'll do it.
There you go. If you want to do it, you will do it. I have been talking to Chris Moss. He is the author of Hope Over Anxiety, How to Smash Crippling Anxiety and Live the Life You Will Love. Apologies in advance if I've been saying anxiety differently every time I've been saying the word. It's anxiety. Okay.
Anxiety.
Okay. You can contact Christopher at mosschristopher799@gmail.com. And on Facebook, the full website is www.facebook.com/@CPMossAuthor, all one word. I want to thank Chris for taking the time to be very open and to speak with us. And listeners, I hope you've taken some information from that away. Thank you, Chris.
You have been listening to the Authors Podcast with Lisa Newton, sponsored by Boogles Limited. Tweet the show at Boogles_books, spelled BOOGLEZ_books. You can also contact your host via the email address lisa@lisanewton.co.uk. And if you want to join our authors community, join the inner circle at www.writeabook.net. You have just been listening to the Authors Podcast with Lisa Newton. See you next time.